Today we're starting chapter 6.2. We are going to be factoring quadratics. There should be a review from Algebra 2, but we're going to go through it again. Remember that factoring is like foiling backwards. So the goal of FOIL is to get a quadratic, and the goal of factoring is to go from a quadratic and get it into parentheses. Okay, we need to talk about some rules here. So it's going to matter what sign you have with the numbers when you're factoring, so we need to talk about how you get positives and negatives out of multiplying. So when you multiply two numbers together, how do you get a positive outcome? Well, we know that positive and a positive gives me a positive outcome. What else gives a positive outcome? A negative and a negative. Okay, so write that down, write positive outcome, and then write positive, positive, negative, negative. And then when you multiply two numbers together, how do you get a negative outcome? Well, positive and negative, or negative positive, which seems like it's the same thing, but again, it's going to matter which number is positive and which one is negative when we're doing factoring. So you need to know that they can change signs. Okay, this next slide is the steps to factoring. I do it a little bit differently than the traditional factoring method, but if you understand the traditional method, I'm totally fine with you using that. So at the beginning of every problem, there's going to be a question at the top, and it's just a way to organize your work. I'll show you the shorthand way of writing the question as well. And then here are the steps. Go ahead and pause your video and write these down. I'm not going to read through them, but we are going to do them together, go through the steps while we do the examples. Okay, so today's lesson, our leading coefficient is always going to be 1. So there's never going to be a number in front of x squared other than 1 this week. And then next week we will start with numbers larger than 1 in front of x squared. Okay, step 1 says look for a negative sign out in front of x squared and factor it out if there is one. Okay, everything is positive in this one, so I can skip that step. Step 2, look for a greatest common factor. Okay, this week we're not going to have a greatest common factor because my number in front of x squared is always going to be 1. But next week we're going to really have to focus on that step. Step 3, multiply a and c and fill in the first blank. So this is a, b, and c. Okay, so I'm going to multiply a and c. So that's 1 times 20, and I'm going to fill it in the first blank. And then it says write down your b value in the second blank. My b value is 9. So the question says, what are two factors of 20 that add to 9? Okay, another way to do this is write your blanks here, write multiply and plus above them, and then we're multiplying to 20 and adding to 9. That's how I usually end up doing it, but it does help to keep the problem organized for you. Okay, step 5 says write out the factors for the number in blank 1. So the number in blank 1 is 20. I need to come up with the factors of that. So all of my numbers in this problem are positive, so that means my factors are both going to be positive, but I need to go through the list here. I got 1 and 20, 2 and 10, not divisible by 3, and 4 and 5. Okay, step 6 says figure out which pair of factors add to get the number in blank 2. Well, 1 and 20 is 21, 2 and 10 is 12, that's closer, 4 and 5 is 9. Okay, write out your answer as two binomials. So I'm going to write in my parentheses here, fill in my variable, and then I use the signs of the factors. So positive 4 and positive 5. Step 8 says divide the numbers inside by a. So dividing by 1, which I know this week isn't going to change anything, but this step is going to be super important next week. And then move that number out in front. So it's going to be 1x plus 4, 1x plus 5. I realize that the numbers in these problems are fairly simple. You probably could have figured this out without doing all the steps that I gave you, but it's going to be really important because next week the problems are going to get harder. So follow this process. I'm not going to give you a ton of problems to do, but I want to see that you're doing it this way. Okay, next problem. It says x squared plus 14x minus 72. So Step 1 says to look to see if there's a negative sign out front. There is not. Step 2, we can skip this week, look for a greatest common factor. Step 3, multiply A and C, fill in the first blank. So 1 times negative 72, negative 72. And write your B value in the second blank, 14. And I'll do the little shorthand version here. Okay, so that means I need to list the factors of negative 72, and I need to find a pair that adds to 14. So I've got 1 and negative 72, 2 and negative 36, 3 and negative 24, 4 and negative 18, 6 and negative 12, and so on. Okay, you do not have to keep going after you find your pair, but I just listed a couple here. All right, 1 plus negative 72, that's not going to give me 14. 2 plus negative 36, no. 3 plus negative 24, no. 4 plus negative 18, that gives me negative 14. So how do I get positive 14 out of that? Well, we talked about it. You have to switch signs. So it's going to be negative 4 and positive 18. So that's going to be my ordered pair. Next step is write your binomials, fill in your variables. Okay, it's going to be minus 4 plus 18. Divide by A, which this week is going to be 1, and then move that number out front. So 1x minus 4, 1x plus 18. Okay, next one, I've got negative x squared plus 13x minus 12. So the first step says to look for a negative sign out in front. We do have it this time, and that means we need to factor it out. So I'm going to have a negative sign. I'm going to change all these signs. It's going to become positive. So it's going to become negative, and this one's going to become positive. Okay, that new quadratic, that is what we're going to use to solve the rest of the problem. Okay, so next step is to look for a greatest common factor. We're skipping it. Step after that, multiply A and C. So 1 times 12 is 12. Write your B value in the second blank, negative 13. So we're multiplying to 12 and adding to negative 13. Okay, so now I need to list the factors of 12. Now, if I'm multiplying to a positive, what are my two options? Positive, positive, negative, negative. Well, if that middle number is negative, then that means if I have two positives, I'm never going to get that. So that means all my factors need to be negative. So negative 1, negative 12, negative 2, negative 6, negative 3, negative 4. Okay, do any of those pairs add to give me negative 13? Yes, the first one. All right, so draw my parentheses, fill them in, x minus 1, x minus 12. Divide by A. Tick that out front. I know this step is pointless now, but it will be very helpful next week, so we're getting in a good habit now. And then this negative sign that we took out, it's got to land in front of my answer. All right, last one. I've got negative x squared plus 7x plus 44. So first step, look for negative. I'm going to take that out. Everything changed signs. All right, next look for greatest common factor. Don't have to this week. Next step, multiply A and C. 1 times negative 44 is negative 44. And we're looking to add to negative 7. Okay, so that means we are finding factors of negative 44. And since both the B value and the C value are negative, that means my answers are going to be positive or negative. Okay, factors of negative 44. Negative 1 and 44. Negative 2 and 22. Negative 4 and 11. All right, those are my only options. So now I need to look to see what adds to give me negative 7. Well, the first one's definitely out. So is the second one. So the last one I've got -4 and 11. Well, if I add those together, I'm going to get +7. So that means I need to change the signs. So my pair would be 4 and -11. Draw my parentheses, x plus 4, x minus 11. Divide by a, kick that number out front. And then this negative sign that we took out has to land out in front of my answer. All right, your homework for this week will be on Google Classroom.